on whether it's sideways or forward. One time it was sideways on Facebook. No. Oh, wait, hold on. No, we are good. 5 people watching already. Watching empty seat. Today's talk will be given by the bodiless.
They're getting front row
They're going Brahman.
Yes, we're good.
Okay. I don't read the same thing again. Universal love. Om Mangalam Gurudevaya Devye Matriksha Mangalam Mangalam Bhakta Brindebhyo Sarvalokaya Mangalam Om Stapakaya Chadarmasya Sarvadharma Sarupine Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishnaya Mangalam Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Ashmarachara Prayantam Vande Gurum Paramparam Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Devo Param Brahman Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Ganesha Sharada Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om Tat Sat. So continuing our readings from the Bhakti Yoga of Swami Vivekananda. I'm going to switch. I've been reading from Nikhilananda's kind of editing, but he occasionally leaves too much out, and so I don't want to miss anything. There's some ideas, and he changes a few things. It's all right. I mean, it's the purpose of editing is to clarify, right? But sometimes you clarify and you lose when you simplify something. You lose something. So I'll read from the little tiny book version that some of you have. We're on page those in your following along. On page 83, Bhakti Yogas, Yoga of Love and Devotion. The last chapter we read, the forms of love manifestation. What he's beginning to, what Swamiji is doing, he's describing, actually some time back, we forget because we've been reading it a little bit at a time with a lot of discussion with lots of breaks. Right, so it's hard to see. This is probably one talk or 2 or 3 talks that have been edited and then split up this way. So the topic that he brought up, first he talked about general topics about devotion, about symbolism, about worship of idols and symbols and images, about Ishwara, the doctrine of Ishwara, the importance of Guru and the avatar, all these kind of general stuff about bhakti, and but as a precursor, and then to Parabhakti. So actually what he's been talking about is Parabhakti, the supreme devotion. Right? So just continuing discussion on Parabhakti and the stages to get to Parabhakti and the effects of Parabhakti. And Sri Ramakrishna also talked about Parabhakti. He described the generally our bhakti is in called guna bhakti, where it's materially conditioned through either sattvic, rajasic, tamasic. And sattvic bhakti is a goal. I mean, it's not the goal actually. It's a goal. In the Devi Gita, the Divine Mother herself says actually, rajasic bhakti, tamasic bhakti, and sattvic bhakti will not get you realization. Right? Only parabhakti get you realization. But sattvic, rajasic bhakti and tamasic bhakti can't get you parabhakti. Sattvic bhakti does. So we can begin to try to develop those. We've really discussed, I'm not going to redo that class. We've discussed Swamiji, it's in the Devi Bhagavatam, and Sri Ramakrishna describes it quite a bit, bhakti in the different modes. So sattvic bhakti is one of the ideals, but sattvic bhakti should lead, ideally, it can lead to parabhakti. And what are those qualities of parabhakti? And so Swamiji has been developing the stages, the experiences, the realizations, the effects of Parabhakti. Another name for Parabhakti is Raganuga Bhakti. Swamiji himself will use this term a little later. And that's also, in the Bhakti tradition, we call it, Raganuga Bhakti means it's hard to explain. It was full, passionate attachment beyond any consideration. And until then, we do it called Vaidhi Bhakti or Sadhana Bhakti. Vaidhi Bhakti or Sadhana Bhakti is devotion. We're doing devotional practices. Out of devotion, we have devotion, right? And because of that, we have devotion, we're engaged in devotional exercises, like chanting, study, like we're doing gathering, satsang, puja, kirtan, thinking of God, remembering God, these practices we're doing. But we do them as practices. They're expressing as our devotion begins to blossom, we begin to have an attraction towards spiritual things and a desire for God. And that leads us to devotional practices. But real devotion, Swamiji says, you don't need to do any practices. You cannot not think of God. We're doing practices to remember God, right? But to a parabhakti, it's impossible to forget God. Swami Chaitanya sometimes jokes about his time in the Himalayas when he was in Mayavati. He says we're always struggling to try to remember God, but in the Himalayas it's hard. You have to struggle to forget God. The atmosphere is so uplifting. That's a funny type of thing. But actually, in the Parabhakti state, I mean, that's why Swamiji's mentioned, you cannot not think of God. I think in the last section he used this term. What was it? What was that word? Twamkara or something. What was that term he used? Thusness or yourness. Remember that? Hisness. What was the word? What was the twamtwa or something? I don't have that underlined. Somebody can find out. When you become so obsessed with God and love of God becomes so overwhelming, you cannot not but see God, or you cannot see something that's not God's. Right? Like we hinted a little bit this first verse of the Ishopanishad, that can be translated two very different ways, right? And Tadiyata means yourness or hisness. It can be like this, right? And so this yourness and hisness or you-ness, you can almost by extension could be like so. In the Ishopanishad, it says one verse could say it could say that cover everything with God, Ishvara. Right. So actually everything you see, just cover it with, see only God. Don't see anything, just see God. If you cover something, you can't see anything. You see only what you covered it with. So you see only, because that's actually the truth, right? That's one practice or some realization. Another translation can be realize that everything is God's. Right. So that also changes things. That's another legitimate way of translating, and two different schools of thought translate that same verse differently, the same idea. So seeing everything as God's means like all of a sudden you see, right, one thing you could say like from a little bit like to cover everything with God, we can try to see this desk is not, there's no desk here, this is God. Either this is God directly, in which there's no Maya. I mean, we know we're only seeing Brahman, the name and form don't exist, so it's only Brahman. Or this is the manifestation of God. This is God's made manifest and tangible. So we're seeing this, there's no table, there's only God, looking like a table. Or you can think, this is God's. right? God's the possessor of everything. He's the Lord of nature, or she's the Lord of nature. She's become everything. Everything belongs to God. And so either way, with any of these things, you don't see a normal table. Everybody else sees a table, and what do they see in the table? How can I use it? Right? How does it relate to me? Right? How does this benefit me? How can I control it? How can I possess it? Right? How can I steal it from somebody else? How can I protect it from somebody else taking it from me? Right? These are all ways of looking at something that's different than tadiyata. That seeing this is God's, therefore it's not mine, right? And therefore you treat things very differently then. If you're using things that aren't yours, you use things very differently. Of course, it's a very big. This could change political consciousness. It could change environmental and ecological consciousness. When you see everything belongs to God, you treat things differently. But it's just not just a philosophical point. Everything belongs to God. When we actually see this as a stage of sadhana, right? That it becomes you can't help see the world changes. Right, everybody is not just we read in the scriptures and we think it's a great idea if we found universal brotherhood and sisterhood and saw everybody equally or treated everybody selflessly. That's true. That's all. It says so in the scriptures, and it's a good practice to try to do. And it'd be awesome if we could do that. But this Swamiji's going to. I'm describing before he read it. Should be read it and then describe it. But it's a good. That's what I do. Jump ahead of myself. The most authentic way to see everybody selflessly, and to see everybody spiritually, and or this idea, Swamiji uses the terms of his time, the brotherhood of man, and the this universal love. These terms that we still use these terms. We use them a little differently now. Is when you see only God or you see only gods, right? We can practice it, but when you actually see it, then you see everything related to him, or everything as him, or you don't see everybody, you only see him. That's one version. Or you see everything as his manifestation. He's taken all these forms. Or minimally, everything is his, and therefore everything becomes dear. And what we read the stages that we were reading last week, is that one of the things that you begin like a holy. Why is a holy? Swamiji asked, why is a holy place holy? Why is a holy person holy? Why do we give him such respect? And we think they belong. This is that person, this place. God was here, or God is here, or like a relic. We have we have a, you can go to Benares and go to see Sri Ramakrishna's shoes, right? It's like, who cares? Shoes are dirty things. Why anybody cares about shoes? But no, these are so, right? Because we believe they're his, right? So those shoes are his. We believe. I mean, even historically, it's not fully known if they're actually his shoes, right? A family claims they're his shoes, right? And that he stayed there. There's no historical proof of that, but there's a family tradition that he stayed there, and his shoes are there. And you think, oh my God, these are his shoes, right? And then you think, oh, he slept on this bed, right? And you think, oh, and he walked down these steps, and he walked down the street, right? So it's like if you love Sri Ramakrishna, everything attached to him, connected to him, everything that's his, becomes significant and holy and worthy of respect, and changes your whole mental attitude. You're so careful, right? But that's also true of everything. If you expand it to the point where it's not just Sri Ramakrishna, but the one who embodied himself as Sri Ramakrishna, whom Sri Ramakrishna expands, everything is his, and therefore you treat everything so carefully. And you see certain saints. One of the evidences, one of the symptoms of a good saint. There's many symptoms. One symptom could be they don't care about anything. Other symptom, they care about everything so carefully, right? So it's said, like Swami Shivananda from Rishikesh. Swami Chidananda was saying, he says, we saw Swami Shivananda was big. He was like 200-300 pounds almost at one point of his life, and big South Indian, big hands, he was a tall man, big, steady type of thing. But he said, we've never seen him knock something over. We've never seen him rip a piece of paper by accident. We've never seen him misplace his glasses. Everything was done so consciously because everything is his. Either it's him or it's his, right? So carefully. So Chidananda is a great example of that. Also, you see him, it becomes almost cliche. We saw one Buddhist nun very many years ago. She gave a Zen monk, gave a Zen nun, very wonderful, we called her the Venerable Zen Lady. So we didn't know if we were going to remember her name. For years we quoted her as Venerable Zen Lady, American lady. Gave a talk at the Vedanta Society at the Ulima retreat, and then she came up very gracefully as somebody who practices that type of meditation, type of mindfulness meditation. And first she poured herself a glass of water before I put down the glass and says, "Okay, that is, I've delivered my sermon." And everybody, it's a little bit cliche. The Buddhist not serving himself a cup of tea is, but it is true. I mean, it is beautiful to see somebody like that pour a cup of tea, right? They see the world differently. So Swami anyways, this is what Swami will begin to speak along these lines. I'll jump in. How can we love the vyasti, the particular, without first loving the samasti, the universal? So that's the first. These are his two philosophical points. 2 words we should learn: vyasti and samasti. Sama means same or all. We get the word same from that same. And sarva bhut, ya devi sarva bhuteshu, that which is everywhere, or that which is all together, or all pervading, or behind everything. We get this type of sama darshana. Says in the Gita that a pandit sees everything equally, or sees that which is the same everywhere. We get the word same, the word same. So samashti is that. So here it means like a universal principle, the universal principle, and vyasti here it means is a particular manifestation of it. And so Swamiji is saying, how can you love the vyasti, the particular, without first loving the samasti? So this is a little counter, because usually we don't love the samasti, we love the vyasti. So this is one of the symptoms. Actually, Swamiji said, Bhakti is only for Ishvara, not for things of the world, and not for people. Right? Though we use the language, you can be devoted and have devotion to a political cause, or to a person, or to our family, or to our country, or to an ideology, or to a religion, an identity, all kinds of things you can be devoted to and have love for, but that love is not called bhakti. Right, and this is one of the distinctions, right? Because we're loving a particular, independent of the universal. So I love a particular person. It's not wrong to love a particular person. That's not the point. But it's not liberating. That's the problem, right? You can see we look at our things as our love for a particular person, although wonderful and part of the joys and energies and manifestation of the human mind and the human life, right? Is also where we get the most tangled, as we can see, and naturally, it's not a liberating. Not necessarily. We have to be careful because it can be expanded and be made universal. But we love, and so we quoted last time the joke in our family. It's like I love humanity, but it's people I hate, or something like this. It's people I can't stand. So we love if we love a person. So, but actually, what happens? We love a person, or But still, why in what is it in the what Upanishad where Maitreya, it is not for the sake of the husband that the husband is dear, but for the sake of the self. Thank you, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Right, he says it is not for the sake of the wife that the wife is dear, but for the sake of the self. It's not for the sake of the children that the children are dear, but for the sake of the self. It's not for the sake of anything is dear, but only for the sake of the self. So actually, even when we love a particular, what we're loving actually is a universal, right? But we don't know it. That's why he was being explained to her, because she didn't know it. She was trying to take somebody who had natural affection for her husband, for her children, for her husband who was about to leave, right? It was a very big statement, and he said, but actually, that your natural love you have for all these things, actually, what you love in them is the self. And besides, like a morbid psychological twist, right? Most people, when you love a person, what is it? You love a person, and when the person dies, what happens? Right? The body is burnt or buried. It's not even the body that we love. The person, of course, it's the person's personality, but there's something even within even the personality is not there anymore when a person dies. Right? We don't have any contact with them. For all intended purposes, maybe it survives in a different, that we have beliefs about that. Faith ideas about what happens at death and like that. But our experience of the person's gone, the personality, everything about them is gone. Yet we still love them. Right? And so what is it we love? We don't love a dead body, we love a living being. So within the living being, there is also that the samasti. There's some reflection or spark or manifestation of the universal, even the particular. But the problem is that when living the particular, we get caught, right? And so we were reading this morning or this afternoon over our coffee. We were discussing the example that Shankaracharya gives of in his commentary on Vedanta Sutra, Brahma Sutra. The classic example of a gold jewelry, right? So he says that to know gold, the universal, you know all the manifestations of gold, all the particular manifestations of gold, like a ring or a necklace or a crown, all the different things, your earrings like this, right? To say I know I'm expert, I know all about this ring, right? But doesn't mean I know all about gold, right? But the thing about this ring, what makes this ring special? It's gold. Right, so even the love of the particular really is a love of the universal. What you love in a ring, of course, there's some beauty and aesthetic design like that. That's a particular manifestation, but what gives it value is that it's gold. So even the love of particular is really we're loving the principle, right? But a sage sees the principle. So he says that to a goldsmith. He doesn't see, of course, a goldsmith is expert at making beautiful things and fixing beautiful things, but they're expert at gold. And so they look around the room, they look at her, your earrings gold, your glasses gold, your necklace gold, it's my ring gold, right? They see gold, they can see gold everywhere, right? And all the particulars they see the universal, because they're trained to notice universal. I may know my ring, but not, doesn't necessarily, and I look around, nobody has my ring. Right, nobody like me. Right, no, I'm very cool. I mean, I am actually very cool. It's a traditional puja ring. Everybody should be jealous of the South Indian pavitra ring. Everybody should get one. Until then, you should look at me with envy and greed. Cool, and hound Adi to get you one. He's the only one who knows how to find them. Traditional pavitra pujari rings. But so I look around. Nobody has. But actually, what happened? But actually, everybody has the equivalent, right? So many people here are wearing gold jewelry, right? So because I know the particular doesn't mean, although it's this universal that I love in the particular, right? It doesn't mean I love the universal when I know the particular. If I know the particular, if I know the universal, then I see it in all its particular forms. Sorry, universal, particular. But Swamiji starts this way, so it's a technical discussion. How can we love the vyasti, the particular, without first loving the samasti, the universal? God is samasti, the generalized and abstract universal whole. What we mean by God is the absolute, the universal being, the source of everything, the one who gives birth to everything, the substratum of everything, the reality behind everything. He, she, it is the universal, samasti. So by God we mean samasti, the universal. God is a samasti, the generalized and abstract universal whole, and the universe that we see is the vyasti, the particularized thing. Now, usually we think particular means a particular person, but even the universe itself. Actually, we think, a person is, the universe is the universal. The universe is also infinitesimally small, right? If we consider in the kind of the Hindu view of the world, this universe is nothing, is a speck. There's actually, when the Lai-Long glance of the Divine Mother, she creates 33 trillion universes, right? One tiny insignificant one in the corner is our universe, right? And so even like this is the particular. The universe is the universe. No, the universe is also particular. It's one manifestation of that infinite, absolute being. So not just, so everything we see is the particularized manifestation of that universal principle. To love the whole universe is possible. So we want to love God. We want to love everything, everyone. We think that's a good thing, right? How is it possible? To love the whole universe is possible only by way of loving the samasti, the universal, which is, as it were, the only unity in which can be found millions and millions of smaller unities. The philosophers of India do not stop at the particulars. They cast a hurried glance at the particulars and immediately start to find generalized forms which will include all the particulars. The search after the universal is the one search of Indian philosophy and religion. The Jnani, then, so he mentions in a very brief, simplified form, Jnani, Bhakti, and Yoga, right? So this is true of science, of religion, of philosophy, as well as the different yogas, looking for the universal, not the particular. Right? The Jnani aimed at the wholeness of things, at the one absolute and generalized being, knowing which he knows everything. If you know gold, you know all objects of gold. Right? If you know water, you know all things made of water. If you know earth, you know all pots made of earth. This is the idea, Shankaracharya says. Right? So you know Brahman, you know everything that he created or that he manifested of, or that's superimposed on him, according to the 3 or 4 main schools. Right? The Bhakta wishes to realize that one generalized abstract person, here we call Ishvara or Purusha, in loving whom he loves the whole universe. The Jnani wants to know the one absolute truth, knowing which you know everything. The Bhakta wants to know the person loving whom you love the whole universe. Right? The yogi wishes to have possession of the one generalized form of power by controlling which he controls this whole universe. The Indian mind throughout its history has been directed to this kind of singular search after the universal in everything, in science, in psychology, in love, in philosophy. So the conclusion to which the Bhakta comes is that if you go on merely loving one person after another, you may go on loving them so for an infinite length of time without being in the least able to love the world as a whole. So by loving, even if you loving one person is good, loving 2 person is maybe twice as good. Maybe. Depends, right? Loving 3, but you keep expanding. Everybody you meet, you try to encourage like that. But you can go on forever and never reach the whole and everything, right? So even by that process, it's not possible to love the universal, right? But if you love the universal, automatically, Swamiji is making the argument, you love everyone, theoretically. When at last the central idea is, however arrived at, that the sum total of all love is God, and the sum total of all aspirations of all the souls in the universe, whether they be free, bound, or struggling towards liberation, is God, then alone it becomes possible for anyone to put forth universal love. The sum total of all loves is God, and the subtotal of all aspirations. Everyone aspiring, he gives the 3 categories of free beings, liberated beings, those struggling for liberation, and bound beings. All of them only want this absolute. Then alone it becomes possible for anyone to put forth this universal love. God is samasti, and this visible universe is God differentiated and made manifest. If we love the sum total, we love everything. Loving the world and doing it good will all come easily then. We have to obtain this power only by loving God first. Otherwise, it is no joke to do good to the world. We try to do, actually we try to do good to the world, but how to? I mean, even Sri Ramakrishna was sometime, because in religion, it's become a standard that the proof of religion is you're doing good to the world. Right, that not. And Swami Vivekananda says that's a. I mean, in Bhakti Yoga, he also of course, he spent his life trying to do good to the world, right? Probably because he was trying to serve the samasti, the universal being behind everything. That was his philosophy, right? But he said that to reduce religion to just doing good, right? Because it's impossible, right? And it's putting the world before God, right? That there's a danger in that, or an individual before the universal, which is a danger in that. And we define religion as doing good. He critiqued the Protestant moralities based upon this, right? And in India also, and so during his own time, some people come to Sri Ramakrishna and say, "Oh, please bless me that I can build hospitals and wells." Right? He says Sri Ramakrishna was not against people doing good and building hospitals. I mean, even the Ramakrishna mission has the best hospitals, right? Very famous hospitals, schools, wells, roads, all the water purification plants. I mean, seed banks, and all the, they're doing these things also. But he says, if God were to appear in front of you, would you ask him for a hospital, right? Or you ask for pure love and devotion, experience, and ecstatic union with him, right? It's like, but so the real way to really do good and to have the power and the proper vision of that is by loving God first. Then the world, as his manifestation, gets benefit, and that we truly have an equal vision and loving vision of everything, to serve everything as God or as gods. But we say everything is God's and everything is God, and that's good. It's better than saying everything is mine. The other option, I mean, some religion, everything is the devil's. We should reject it and punish it as all we can. That's foolish. But worse, there's another type of devil. It's called body consciousness. Swamiji uses this term. That's the real devil, is body. So everything is mine. Everything is for my body, right? So thinking everything is God and everything is or God's. Even that intellectual idea has benefit, right? So it's correcting ourselves like that. But we don't really know. We say these words, but they don't have any real. In the Shashtakam, Lord Chaitanya says, "Though I say these words with my lips, they find no echo in my heart." We say them, but we don't know them. Until we know them, then these statements. And the reason we've even heard such statements is because those who've had love of God, Parabhakti, they've made these statements, and we hear about them. We say, "Oh, I want to have their vision." You look at a saying like, "Oh, if only I could see the world the way they see the world," right? Well, we can, right? But it requires practicing what they practiced and developing that type of love. God first. Swami Shivananda also, his 300 books of simple, powerful, small statements, right? One of which is God first, world next, self last. Right, that was his philosophy. He says, and the problem is now we're in a selfish, where our new religion is selfishness. Where you see, even you turn on the TV and look at preachers on TV, or in the self-help, the New Age movement. It's all about religion is how do I succeed, how I become successful, how do I get what I want and manifest my dreams, right? It's like that's an interesting. Well, all those things are fine. I hope people are happy, healthy, successful, and manifest your dreams. That's my blessing to all of you. I wish you all success, right? Naturally, right? But that's not the same as religion, right? And so it's like me first, right? Self first. Right, then the world, because we have to satisfy it. I mean, can't bring that. And the world's also, and God, we don't know what that is, right? Really, God's been taken out of it. So Swami Shivananda said, God first, world next, self last. It's a good mantra to remember. It's the exact opposite of everything that we know, we think, and everything we're being told, screamed, taught. It's the exact opposite of everything. Soul, that's why, So, if we love the sum total, we love everything. Loving the world and doing it good will all come easily then. We have to obtain the power only by loving God first. Otherwise, it is no joke to do good to the world. Then Swamiji quotes, everything is His and He is my lover. I am love. I love Him, says the Bhakta. Everything is His, He is my lover, I love Him. So I love Him, He loves me, and everything is His. Right? That's the vritti, the thought, the continuous thought of a lover. In this way, everything becomes sacred to the bhakta, because all are His. The thing is that cover everything with God, or realize everything belongs to God. Yeah. So everything and everybody has to be treated so with worship. Actually, the famous. This is everybody here knows probably, but it's worth repeating. When Sri Ramakrishna was quoting Jiva Goswami or Rupa Goswami, forgive me, it's one of those two, a famous line that I shall summarize Vaishnava Dharma, Bhakti Yoga, right? And he says that to live in a holy place, right? To chant God's name and to show compassion to jivas. It's like anyway, and show compassion to the fallen jivas, right? So Sri Ramakrishna was quoting it. To remember, we live in a holy place, live in a holy place, chant God's name, and show compassion to jivas. And then Sri Ramakrishna almost had a violent shock. He says, what? Not criticizing Chaitanya's disciples, but he had a deep, from his own realization, a big struggle, right? He says, what? Compassion? Daya? Daya for fallen souls? Who am I to show compassion to them? Compassion is somebody you show to somebody who's lower than you. You give mercy to somebody who's below you, right? He says these are all God, or gods minimally, but maybe God himself, right? We should serve them, right? Where serving is not out of compassion, but out of worship, because they're God, right? And Swami Vivekananda took this line from this conversation, and Swamiji was, in a certain sense, he took the samasti of Sri Ramakrishna and particularized it and made it vyasi and showed how to an aspect of how to live it. He thought, no, what this means is that the service, we call it Didina Narayana, it's Narayana Seva or Jiva, Shiva is Jiva, or the worship of the suffering. When you serve somebody who's suffering, somebody who's poor, somebody who's hungry, somebody who's ignorant, and you give them education, food, water, help, shelter, training, whatever the thing is, right? We're not doing it out of compassion, but out of worship, because and we should not feel, oh, they should thank me. I'm being so compassionate towards them. We should thank them because they allow us to work, because the Lord we worship has come in these forms, and in the Uddhava Gita, the Bhagavatam, Krishna is describing the different forms of God and how they're worshipped. Like, for instance, and God can be worshipped in the fire. How is he worshipped? With copious amounts of ghee. God can be worshipped in a yantra. How is he worshipped? By noticing and placing all the deities in their proper angles. God can be worshipped in an image. How is he worshipped? By decoration of flowers and like this. God can be worshipped in a holy man. How? By putting food into their mouth. God can be worshipped in a river by pouring water into the river. God can be worshipped by the sun, in the orb of the sun, by chanting Gayatri Mantra. Each form of God has a way that can be worshipped. So God comes in the form of a poor person, or a hungry person. How is he worshipped? By food. If it's part of an ignorant person, by education. A sick person, by medicine or treatment. Whatever the situation is, these are, by extension, extending that principle, right, into Swami and Sri Ramakrishna's new definition of this is also a type of worship. Either it's our Lord or he or she's our Lord's, right? And therefore, either way, we have to treat with so much respect, or we naturally, spontaneously treat with so much respect and love. In this way, everything becomes sacred to the bhakta, because all things are his. All are his children, his body, his manifestation. So it is either they're his, or they're him. His manifestations are also part of him, right? How then can we hurt anyone? How then may we not love anyone? With the love of God will come, as a sure effect, the love of everyone in the universe. So I've quoted this before. It was a very big thing I used to meditate a lot about in high school. John 2 or something like that. It says that anyone who says that I love God, but he hates his brother, right? That person is a liar. Because this is a symptom of love of God, is loving everyone. Because if you love the universal, you love, like, I love gold. What about that? Oh, I hate that. Like that stupid, it's not as cool as my pavitra ring. That makes, you have no idea. If you say I love all gold and you hate all these particular, or even one manifestation of gold, it means either you don't actually love gold, or you don't know what gold is. You're saying gold, 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 but you have no idea. You don't, even in front of you, you don't see it. You don't notice it, right? So somebody makes such a statement. Sri Ramakrishna gave another example. It's like saying, "Oh yes, in such and such village, I saw a cow. There were many horses in the cowshed, right?" And as Sri Ramakrishna says, actually, people don't put horses in cowsheds, right? So the person making that statement, they probably don't know what a cow shed is. Or a horse. They don't know the difference between a horse or a cow, and they don't know what a cowshed is, right? So that statements seem, on their face value, foolish, right? So that same statement, the one who says, I love God and hate my brother, or hate my neighbor, whatever the term is for the other. So that person is a liar, right? Strong words. How then may we not love anyone? With the love of God will come as a sure effect the love of everyone in the universe. The nearer we approach God, the more do we begin to see that all things are in Him. When the soul succeeds in appropriating the bliss of this supreme love, it also begins to see Him in everything. When the bliss of bhakti really comes, one of the symptoms of that is that you begin to see that same reality everywhere. Our hearts will thus become an eternal fountain of love. And when we reach even higher states of this love, all the little differences between the things of the world are entirely lost. Man is seen no more as man, but only as God. The animal is seen no more as animal, but as God. Even the tiger is no more a tiger, but a manifestation of God. Thus, in this intense state of bhakti, worship is offered to everyone, to every life, to every being. So we even have hints of that in the Chandi, Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu. We bow again and again and again to that principle, that Devi, that in all these particulars, in the form of this, in the form of that, in the form of this, in the form of that, right? Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu, that God exists in all beings, right? I bow, I bow, I bow, I bow. That's the symptom. Of course, we pray these trying to evoke that, but these are the symptoms of Prem Bhakti or Parabhakti. Then Swamiji quotes in Sanskrit. We were looking. This is the one you didn't find the source of. We haven't found the source. Knowing that Hari, the Lord, is in every being, the wise have thus to manifest unswerving love towards all beings. Knowing that Hari is in all beings, God's in all beings, the wise manifest love for all beings. So the same thing. He's the one who exists in all beings. Therefore, we love all beings naturally. One of the ways we can say is the one we love. Just think about this simple statement. The one we love exists in all beings. Right? That's a real simple. That not even if we don't realize it, even that statement is a very powerful effect. How you treat people. Remember, the one we love exists there. Right, so I mean, this was a big thing. People would ask me, like, why are you vegetarian and things like that. That was my answer. The one I love exists in all beings, right? Including, so I don't want to cause harm. I don't want, it's like I treat things. I'm trying to. I can't say I have that realization. We're trying to, or whatever the situation is. As a result of this kind of intense, all-absorbing love comes a feeling of perfect self-surrender, the conviction that nothing that happens is against us. A practiculia. That Swamiji uses this term twice in the talk, right? Without definition. He gives his definition, and certainly he gives his definition, the idea that nothing's against us, right? And actually it means, one of the meanings of prakti is like we're invincible. There's nothing can harm us, right? We have no enemy, type of thing. There's nothing that can go against us, right? And it could be anything, I am so powerful. But actually, this is different. This is a different type of feeling of invincibility. Is that since God's doing everything, then anything that happens to me is good. Nothing's hurting me, right? So even if somebody comes to shoot you or kill you or steal from you, there's many examples of saints. It's like a thief comes, and what was it? Pavahari Baba, who Swami Vivekananda had tremendous respect for. Many of the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna saw Pavahari Baba, where somebody broke into his kutir and stole something, right? Or stole the bread, and he said, "I want to." You forgot to.
He chased after him with
butter, yeah, something like that. Somebody stole bread. He said, "No, let me give you." You forgot. Let me give you butter. Something like this, right? Right. Or there's a story of the Baal Shem Tov, where somebody broke in. I've told this story before many years ago. It's in the traditional life of Baal Shem Tov, the great Jewish mystic, the master of God's name. His name means. Right, as somebody came in, so the Torah is kept in very ornate silver casing, very expensive thing. They're almost worshipped, and somebody stole he saw somebody break into his house and steal his Torah, and he ran after him saying, "I give it to you, I give it to you, I give it to you." Right. So not only that, not thinking of a thing, but also thinking that he shouldn't have any sin in going. So even the idea that not only is it not hurting me, it shouldn't hurt him. right? Because the sin of stealing a Torah from a holy man probably is not a good idea, right? But he got blessings. So he's giving. So he's giving even those who are hurting you, you give blessings. Or you see they're not hurting you. That's the other thing. That you're actually invincible. Nothing can hurt you because everything is doing. If God kills you, that's blessing. In the Bhagavatam, every time God kills a demon, he's liberated, right? So if God, so actually God's doing everything. We have this vision. We see everything is God, and God's doing everything belongs to God, and God's doing everything. It changes everything. We're not scared of anything. We don't differentiate like this, Then the loving soul is able to say, if pain comes, welcome pain. If misery comes, it will say, welcome misery. You are also a form of my beloved. If a serpent comes, it will say, welcome serpent. If death comes, such a bhakta will welcome it with a smile. Blessed am I that they all come to me, that they are all welcome. The bhakta in this state of perfect resignation, arising out of intense love of God, and to God and to all that are His, ceases to distinguish between pleasure and pain, insofar as they affect Him. So this is what Swamiji is saying. This is called surrender, right? Surrender to God means that surrender means you can do anything, right? I'm not fighting. We're usually trying to direct God. Our surrender is God, do what I want. Or our surrender is, isn't it wonderful that any stupid thing that I want is God's will? That's the next thing. No, actually, whatever God does is God's will. Swami Shivananda, he said, this is a dictum for bhaktas. O Lord, thy will be done. Right? Thy will be done. Thy will be done. Not, he repeat this again and again. Thy will be done. What does it mean? That not only is like, finally, right now your will's not being done, and we want your will to be done. That's still a wrong idea, right? Actually, your will is being done. I don't see it. When I see you're doing everything, already your will's being done. It's not like finally your will's going to be done. Can anybody go against God's will? In that sense. And this maybe you can bring a theological moral argument on free will and rejecting of God. That's not what's being done. This is the inner mood of a bhakta, right? To say that you're already your will. You do whatever you want, do whatever you don't, whatever you want, right? Or to one of the lines in Rampriya new song that he got from Swami Bhajanananda in Dehradun, right? He says, "When do you surrender? When you're surrounded." Right, and it's like when you realize that there's nothing you can do, and it's all the enemy is everywhere. You say, "Okay, I give up." You do whatever, or you do whatever, right? And then Swamiji says, and before then, it's called treason. Right? If you surrender before until then you have to fight. But then the thing is, the real realization, we can't fake it, right? It's true. You're faking. When we really have that experience, this is the description. The description of this Pada Bhakti view. We've seen occasionally, I remember Swami Bhaskarananda in Ujjain, he has some health problems. So he told me, I tell them, these are his diseases. He says, you're welcome to stay here, in my body, roommate. Right? Please don't cause too much trouble, but you're welcome to stay here. The thing is, because he's also trying to use his body to serve God, but God sent this disease, so he accepts it. It's like, right? The bhakta in that state of perfect resignation arising out of intense love of God, and to all that is His, ceases to distinguish between pleasure and pain, and in so far they affect him. He does not know what it is to complain of pain and misery. And this kind of uncomplaining resignation to the will of God, who is all love, is indeed a worthier acquisition than all the glory of grand and heroic performances. To the vast majority of mankind, the body is everything. Let's talk about our problem right now. The body is all the universe to them. Bodily enjoyment is their all in all. This demon of the worship of the body and the things of the body has entered into all of us, into us all. We may indulge in talk, and take very high flights. But we are like vultures all the same. Our mind is directed to the peace of carrion down below. So he's quoting Sri Ramakrishna's example, right? Sri Ramakrishna was sometimes called, he'd complain or criticize pundits, right? Intellectual, they can quote the scriptures and very high, the six systems of philosophy and all the very, very high things, right? But they're attached to their body, right? Which means no matter how high they go, like vultures can go so high, but what are they looking at? They're so high, but they're looking down for dead and dying things. Carrion, right? They're birds of carrion birds. Carrion, that's the right word. Yeah, carrion. So same thing. So we talk philosophy, we talk universal brotherhood, love of God, love of self, love of neighbor, love of brother, and all kinds of things about we're not the body, we're the self, and then there's only Brahman, the world doesn't exist. We can keep going, extracting either the pious sentiments of religion and the philosophical abstractions of philosophy, like this. But we think we're the body, and this body is everything, and preserving the body and the pleasure of the body is the goal of life. So no matter how we're like, so Swamiji says, we're like vultures, flying high, and looking at a dead and dying things, the body. So he's comparing, it's like this is a description of a Padabhakta's view of the world, and we have to be a little humble with our perspective, But there's hope. Why should our body be saved? Say from the tiger. Why may we not give it over to the tiger? The tiger will therefore be pleased, and this is not altogether so very far from self-sacrifice and worship. Can you reach the realization of such an idea in which all sense of self is completely lost? It is a very dizzy height on the pinnacle of the religion of love, and few in this world have ever climbed up to it. But until a man reaches that highest point of ever ready and ever willing self-sacrifice, he cannot become a perfect bhakta. That's why it's to say, bhakti yoga is easy. We have to know what's meant by that. It's not easy. It's relatively more natural. That's what Swamiji says, not easy. Right? We may all manage to maintain our bodies more or less satisfactory, and for longer or shorter intervals of time. So the fact is we're all trying, and we're succeeding to take care of our bodies, keep ourselves alive, keep ourselves relatively healthy, right? And trying to live naturally. This is a natural tendency and instinct within the body to live long, healthy life, right? Nevertheless, our bodies have to go. There is no permanence about them. Blessed are they whose bodies get destroyed in the service of others. Wealth, and Swamiji is quoting here, wealth and even life itself, the sage always holds ready for the service of others. In this world, there being one thing certain, death, it is far better that this body dies in a good cause than in a bad one. Since we're going to die, we'll use this body for a good cause rather than, what's a bad cause? Our selfish behavior, right? And so many people can say the body, that's the body is certain. So, and then he'd tell the young men of Calcutta at the time, they would gathered around him, their body is going to die, and we believe there'll be so many more bodies, right? After this, another body will come, right? So then this body is definitely going to go. Use this one to do something good, right? That was his encouragement. Use this one, realize God and serve God and all. The other bodies will come. Don't worry. If you do this properly, no more bodies will come. But so since it's going to go, let's do something good with it. Here's somebody saying, if it gets sacrificed for the good of the world, that's the highest use of it. We may drag our life on for 50 years or 100 years, but after that, what is it that happens? Everything that is the result of combination must get dissolved and die. This is the verse from some traditional Sankhya verse. Anything that's been put together will fall apart. Anything that's put together by parts will fall apart. Anything that's not put together by part, that means the universal, unchanging, uncreated being, that lasts forever. So anything that's put together, this body was put together, this body will fall apart. This desk was put together, this desk will fall apart, right? This iPhone was put together, the iPhone will fall apart. So it's temporary. I'll be careful. We try to take care of it.
It's a droid.
Oh, this droid, Samson, also God. We have to be. Whoa. So truth is important. Austerity of the sage. Well, it may fall apart quicker. I don't know. That I don't know. But so being that's the case, everything is temporary. Let's use it properly. Let's use it for the best use, right? Use it for God. Use it for God. Either where we think we use it for sadhana, scholarization. Use it for service. Use it to let it be used this way, and not be attached to it, because we should take care. Once again, this is also his. We should also take it. Swamiji is being dramatic. Right, if a tiger comes, feed yourself to the tiger. Right, Sri Ramakrishna also said, if a tiger comes, keep away from the tiger. Right, because the one who says be careful of tigers is also God. Right, we have to also, this body is also, it's not. Swamiji is being rhetorical and strong. Inspiring, and throwing bombs in the audience. I'm sure he was saying taken me an hour to slowly. He spoke powerfully and fast and pounding his fist on the. Pacing back and forth and pounding the fist on the podium. He was a dramatic speaker, right? So he's making a big point. Not saying that we should feed ourselves to tigers, right? But eventually something's going to eat us, right? Either maybe a tiger would be cool, actually. That's kind of nice dramatic way to go. Most people die a little, it's like, but it says that insects will eat us, worms will eat us if we're buried. Fish will eat us if we're put in the water. It's like this body is going to be eaten by. So the idea is that it's inevitable. So how do you make the best possible use and not be attached to it? Everything that is a result of combination must get dissolved and die. There must and will come a time for it to be decomposed. Jesus and Buddha and Muhammad are all dead. All the great prophets and teachers of the world are dead. Even they died. So that's happening to us too. In this effervescent world, where everything is falling to pieces, we have to make the highest use of what time we have, says the Bhakta. And really, the highest use of life is to hold it at the service of all beings. If this horrible body idea, it is this horrible body idea that breeds all the selfishness in the world. Just this one delusion that we are wholly the body we own, and that we must, by all possible means, try our very best to preserve and to please it. If you know that you are positively other than your body, you have then none to fight with or struggle against. You are dead to all ideas of selfishness. So the Bhakta declares that we have to hold ourselves as if we are altogether dead to all the things of the world, and that is indeed self-surrender. Actually, another thing I skipped a little bit, it didn't bring out, is Swami says that since everything is temporary, use it. Right. This is one of the places, but another place he says it more directly. I thought it's been in my mind a few days when I read, maybe this is it, but I think it may be even an idea that he repeats. But he says, since everything will be taken away, right? Therefore, give it now. Right. So you see, it's like, this is a very precious book to me. I've had this book for so many years, right? But you see somebody, because it's so precious to me, if I give it to Ananda, I'll get one of these days from my cold. literally my cold data. If I give it, then it's so dear. He benefits from it, and if I'm attached to it, soon, taking it preciously to my kutir, I get wet and start molding and start decomposing. Right, today itself it can start decomposing. Minimally, it's going to be when I die, either it's going to die or I'm going to die first. Right, but in the simple process of giving it to somebody, they benefit. And love has been exchanged, right? People, and the more meaningful it is to me, the more meaningful the gift will be, right? And I can't hold on to it. It's going to be taken away from me. It's being taken away from me. So something that's being taken away from you, give it away. So it's interesting that another view of that Baal Shem Tov story. something was stolen, he says, I give it to you. Right? Therefore, he gets the punya of giving it, not the pain of losing it. Right? You're going to lose everything, but if you give it, if you dedicate, everything that's being taken away, you give it, you dedicate it. And then it becomes glorious rather than embarrassing and noble. We're not victims, we become worshippers, not victims of the very processes of time and life. Doing good. It is how I read that. So the Bhakta desire declares that. I read that too. This is the meaning of "Thy will be done." When we say "Thy will be done," this is what's meant. Not going about fighting and struggling and thinking all the while that God wills all our own weakness and worldly ambitions. This is we fight and struggle, right? And we think, oh, this is God's will, that my selfish desires and ambitions are satisfied. This is not surrender. The exact opposite. Surrender is whatever God does, I give it all, and let God do. It may be that good comes even out of our selfish struggle. That is, however, God's lookout. So even our selfish struggle, some good comes from that. So we shouldn't overly think that that's God's work. That's God's business. The perfected bhakta's idea must be never to will. Sorry, the perfected bhakta's idea must be never to will and work for himself. Lord, they build high temples in your name. They make large gifts in your name. I am poor, I have nothing. So I take this body of mine and place it at your feet. Do not give me up, O Lord. Such is a prayer proceeding out of the depths of the bhakta's heart. To him who has experienced it, this eternal sacrifice of the self into the beloved Lord is higher by far than all the wealth and power, than even all soaring thoughts of renown and enjoyment. The peace of the bhakta's calm resignation is a peace that passeth all understanding. From Paul's letters, I think. Peace that surpasses all understanding. And is of incomparable value. His apraptikulya is a state of the mind in which he has no interest and naturally knows nothing that is opposed to it. So if that word we started to use is apraptikulya, is having no enemy or nothing that can harm you. Comes from that. When this is the devotee's enemylessness is seeing everything as surrendering to God. And nothing can oppose. In this state of sublime resignation, everything in the shape of attachment goes away completely, except that one all-absorbing love to Him, in whom all things live and move and have their being. This attachment of love to God is indeed one that does not bind the soul, but effectively breaks all of its bondages. That's Swamiji's very beginning of the Bhakti Yoga, is that usually love, attachment, these are things that we think are binding, but this type of attachment liberates, right? And Swamiji says Bhakti Yoga starts by taking all of our desires, all of our ambitions, all of our attachments, all of our emotions, and directing them to God, to Ishvara, the universal beyond the particular, to use this week's discussion, right? He says then rather than binding, they lead to our blessedness. That's what Swamiji is saying. There's a short section, I think we should, because next week we can do the Triangle of Love in one sitting, I think, which is one of my favorite and very important. So I'll read the next section. It's entitled, "The Higher Knowledge and the Higher Love Are One to the True Lover." This is Jnana, Brahma Jnana, right? Which is called the Higher Love, and Pada Bhakti. So Pada Bhakti and Brahma Jnana are considered the same. This is the idea. The Upanishads distinguish between a higher knowledge and the lower knowledge. And to the Bhakta, there is really no difference between this higher knowledge and this higher love, Pada Bhakti. The Mundakya Upanishad says, in a long verse, which I won't, Swamiji translated it, but I can't chant it, translates as, what is it? You know the verse though. What was it? The people's
It's,
one.
There's 114, 114, and 115.
114, 115. All knowers of Brahman declare that there are two kinds of knowledge worthy to be known, namely Pada, the higher, Pada Vidya, and the lower, Apada Vidya. Of these, the lower knowledge consists of, so both things are worthy of knowing, the lower knowledge and the higher knowledge. That's what's higher, lower knowledge. These are pretty good. Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharvaveda, the Shiksha, that's the science dealing with pronunciation and accent, the Kalpa, or the sacrificial liturgy, grammar, the Nirukta, or the science dealing with etymology and the meaning of words, prosody, the astronomy, and astronomy. And the higher knowledge is that by which the unchangeable is known. The lower knowledge is the scriptural knowledge. You could say it's science, it's grammar, things we go to school for, as well as religious things. Even the knowledge of the scripture is considered apada vidya, right? But apada vidya is not like, oh, apada is bad. No, apada, these are things, these are our education. This is how we become cultured and educated and refined and able. But pada vidya, the supreme knowledge, is that by which the unchangeable is known, the universal. The higher knowledge is thus clearly shown to be the knowledge of Brahman. And the Devi Bhagavata gives us the following definitions of the higher love, Pada Bhakti. This is from the Devi Gita, from the Devi Bhagavata, where the Devi herself is describing Bhakti Yoga. The Himalayan, the gods ask, well, how do we attain your undifferentiated, continuous vision? And she says, by Bhakti, by Pada Bhakti, and she describing the Pada Bhakti. And so Swamiji quotes one line from this Pada Bhakti verse. Here. This translation, Swamiji's translation is also good. It's actually 7:12 of the Devi Gita, chapter 7, verse 12. Swamiji's translation. As oil poured from one vessel to another falls in an unbroken line, so when the mind is in an unbroken stream, thinks of the Lord, we have what is called Pada Bhakti, or supreme love. So actually that's also, that same image of oil, unbroken stream of oil, is also given in the commentaries of Yoga Sutra, right, as a description of dhyanam, right? Concentration is bringing the mind, trying to focus on one thing. When the concentration, the thought of the one thing becomes continuous, like a continuous stream of oil, like pouring oil was that, that's considered to be the state of dhyana. And of course, in the Yoga Sutra, the state of dhyana leads to the distinction, the disappearing of the distinction between the object of meditation and the meditator. Actually, the trinity of the meditator, the object of meditation, and meditation, right? The thinker, the thought, and thinking. When it becomes continuous, something called samyama, you get a unitive experience, almost like a samadhi. Is the precursor to samadhi. So this is the samadhi experience, actually a unitive experience, transcending the distinctions of duality, or trinity in the sense, right? So, but that's Devi Gita, and Swamiji is quoting out of all verses. He quotes that verse from Devi Gita. Devi Gita, that's called Pada Bhakti. When the thought of God becomes continuous, right? Of course, by practice, we try to think of God. We do our japa, we do our puja, contemplation, prayer, meditation, right? But when it becomes continuous, it only becomes continuous when the object of meditation is so wonderful, right? And our love for it is so great, we cannot not think of it. It's not an act of will, like, I have to think, concentrate. That's called meditation, right? Darn it, concentrate. Trying to keep the thought going, repetitive, and holding the thought longer and longer, and maybe little glimpses of that. But when love of God is so extreme, and God is so attractive, and we're so attracted, we cannot not think of God. Right, just like, so it's not just in a state of meditation. He's not describing meditation. Actually, in the Devi Gita, this verse is not describing meditation, it's describing Pada Bhakti. Right, so it's not just a state of trying to transcend, trying to concentrate to reach samyama and these meditative experiences. This is the whole life. The mind never forgets God. That's called Pada Bhakti. Right, and then in the Devi Gita, there's a famous. The same idea is given, beautiful, in Kapila Gita, We're working on these verses, Kapila Muni speaking, teaching Devahuti in the Srimad Bhagavatam. In these 5 main chapters called Kapila Gita, where he describes the use of different, rather use in unbroken, he says it's like the continuous river, a river continuously joining the ocean. It's even more liberating, ecstatic, unitive experience, right? But it's not like the river finally reaches the ocean, right? The river is continuously reaching the ocean. The river is continuously flowing to the ocean, right? Especially if it's raining. If it rains in California, we don't think of this anymore because none of our rivers flow, and the few big ones don't even reach the ocean anymore. So we've lost the poetic meaning of rivers and ocean, you know. But actually, the continuous river meeting the ocean, that's in described Pada Bhakti by Kapila. Using the same image, but a new same idea, but even better. It's not just continuous; it's continuous joining, flowing, rushing towards to embrace. But it doesn't lose itself. The river, you can say, oh, it loses itself in the ocean. The river continues. The existence of the river is defined as something continuously rushing towards the ocean. Right? The Pada Bhakti always thinks of God, always is flowing towards God. That's Pada Bhakti. This kind of undisturbed and ever steady devotion of the mind and heart to the Lord, which is an inseparable attachment, is indeed the highest manifestation of man's love of God. All other forms of bhakti are all preparatory to the attainment of this highest form. Therefore, the Pada Bhakti, all other forms of bhakti are only preparatory to the attainment of this highest form thereof. The Pada Bhakti, which is also known as the love that comes after attachment. That's Raganuga Bhakti. We used that term earlier. This is a technical term. Raganuga Bhakti, the devotion that comes from extreme attachment. This is considered. We meditate upon these things. We see that in some of the greatest saints. This example. We celebrated yesterday Gaur Purnima. Lord Chaitanya, his disciples, they spoke on this and they demonstrated this. This Pada Bhakti, this Raganuga Bhakti. Everything else is Vaidhi Bhakti, preparatory, according to sadhana. Everything else is sadhana bhakti. We do devotion. Out of devotion, we do sadhana so we can get Pada Bhakti. So the continuous flow of thought towards God. Or Raganuga Bhakti. When this supreme love once comes into the heart of man, his mind will continuously think of God and remember nothing else. He will give no room in himself of thoughts other than those of God, and his soul will be unconquerably pure, and will alone break all the bonds of mind and matter and become serenely free. He alone can worship the Lord in his own heart. To him, forms, symbols, books, and doctrines are all unnecessary and are incapable of proving serviceable in any way. We hold books, forms, and doctrines, right, as our support towards our spiritual life. But to somebody who's already thinking of God continuously, these things no longer matter. Sri Ramakrishna would sing a song like the Sandhya prayers. People chant, millions of people every day at sunrise, noon, and sunset. They chant Gayatri and they do some rituals, right? He said, but one who always thinks of God, what is the need of the Sandhya? The purpose of Sandhya is to train ourselves to think of God. When love of God awakens, he says, the song says that the deities of the Sandhya and the practice of Sandhya chase after that devotee. He doesn't have to practice it. They run after that devotee, right? What's the other one? There's one song that says, "If God is worshipped with love, what's the use of the Sandhya prayers? And if God isn't worshipped with love, what's the use of the Sandhya prayers? Right? If the Sandhya prayers aren't done out of love, what's their value? And if they don't, and once you have love of God, what's their use also?" He alone can worship the Lord in his own heart. To him, forms, symbols, books, and doctrines are all unnecessary and are incapable of proving serviceable in any way. It is not easy to love the Lord thus. Ordinarily, human love is seen to flourish only in places where it is returned. Right? We only love who loves us back. And human, that's called human. Actually, the next chapter in the triangle of love, Swamiji will talk about that. Right? Where love is not returned for love, cold indifference is the natural result. There are, however, rare instances in which we may notice love exhibiting itself, even where there is no return of love. We may compare this kind of love, for the purpose of illustration, to the love of a moth for the fire. The insect loves the fire, falls into it, and dies. It is indeed in the nature of this insect to love so. To love because it is the nature of love. To love is undeniably the highest and the most unselfish manifestation of love that may be seen in this world. We see glimpses of this in the love of a mother to the child. Right? Of course, the mother, there is some tinge of selfishness, expectation, and a return service, and return. But still, still, even if the child's rebelling, even the child, I hate you, the mother still is to do something. There's some. That's why mother's love is given the symbol as the highest love. But in the scripture, the highest example is out of the gopis, right? The gopis love Krishna not because. Some gopis love Krishna because they wanted pleasure from Krishna, right? But the highest gopis that we sing their praises to this day love Krishna because they want their love means they want Krishna to be happy, right? Not their own happiness. Unselfish love. Such love, working itself out on the plane of spirituality, necessarily leads to the attainment of para bhakti. So, and there, it's almost time. Thing I wanted to don't turn off quite yet. One second. So this is the Swamiji exactly. It's a very, like I said, small book, big ideas. Because what he's doing, he's describing para bhakti, right? This higher points, and so we use this word love, we use the word devotion, and without full knowledge, and so the benefit of a little bit of the study. Sometimes, of course, one quality of a devotee is that he's not interested in any of this. All this is not really to somebody who's living it. All this is just it's also chatter. It's But there's a benefit of it because one of the we discussed many times, and I quote from Swami Bhajanananda, right? And he says the purpose of philosophy is not to reveal truth; it's to remove error, right? To remove mistakes in thinking and reasoning and language like this is the purpose of philosophy, classical philosophy, right? And Vedanta is the same thing. Vedantic reasoning does not reveal the truth. The truth is revealed as an act of grace, either from above or from within, right? So devotion also, but so there's a benefit of some philosophical thinking about these things in order to clarify our own, to show us the possible goal, what's possible, but also to reveal where, we read these things and we're like, ooh, there are little pinches here and there. We realize that we've made mistakes or we're, and there's all kinds of little things that happen in spiritual life. I may have quoted this before, maybe in satsang or not, at least privately with people. We knew somebody who was chanting japa, chanting Mahamantra japa for many, many years, doing her proper round. And then she had a big realization, like a big, but a painful realization. It was like a pop, right? Says that the whole time I'm chanting because I want to, it gives me pleasure and I want to concentrate my mind. I want to experience the bliss of meditation and like this, right? And she's getting some of that, right? But she said, oh my God, that itself is selfish. Right, I should be chanting to please Krishna. Right, that very single thing, I'm chanting to benefit me. Right, it's like that. It's something so simple, but at a certain point, she had that, and so hearing about these things and we realize, or even our own spiritual life, there's all kinds of little subtle selfish niches that we need to wash, and let our sadhanas take us to that stage next. So some benefit also to reading these things. And then in the Kapila Gita, which I just quoted a little while ago, it also says that by gathering with holy people, we hear these spiritual truths, stories of the saints and the Lord, and these spiritual truths, right? And he says that by such hearing, right, what happens is that first, he says, these things develop stage by stage. First is Shraddha, faith. And by Shraddha is not just faith in God, but faith in the spiritual process of devotion, right? And so then when faith develops, then we have Rati. Then we get delight or taste in spiritual, in devotional, and from God. and then we get bhakti. Right, the final stage is bhakti and prem. Right, so we go through by hearing these things again and again in holy company. That's the value of holy company. He says, is we in holy company we hear about these things, and we hear about these things. Our faith becomes firm. Then from that we develop taste, and then from taste comes hopefully blossom devotion. And they will read from that text again after many years. Thank you for your kind attention. Any in 30 seconds? Any question? Any question?
Just an anecdote, really.
Tell me.
I was listening to an interview with the sage Leonard Cohen, and he was promoting his book of longing, which was some poems. So in the question and answer session, the lady asked him, "Well, aren't you, tired of longing? Don't you want to trade it in for something like maybe fulfillment?" And he answered very quickly. He said, "What does fulfillment have to offer?"
Huh? That's a class. That's a great Leonard Cohen quote. A new sutra from Leonard Cohen.
Yeah, exactly.
He's one of the greats for sure.
Yeah.
That's very good. Yes. Actually, we talked last time, even that last week, about the pain that comes from separation from God. Also, right? That's actually considered. Can't say higher than fulfillment, but it comes out of, like once you're fulfilled, only then you know what to long for. Once you've tasted it, then you only know how much longing increases infinitely. Right? Where now we're supposed to have longing for something we've never experienced. From experience comes real longing. We can't otherwise. Until then, what is it? We hear about it and we develop a little bit of faith. Oh, maybe this is good. But until we get the actual taste, rati, then bhakti starts. Right? So the longing for God starts after one gets a little bit of taste of God. Right? Okay, Hari Om Tat Sat. Up to that. That's what he says. Up to that tonight. Jai Thakur, Jai Ma, Jai everyone online.